You certainly make magic. I apologize for my science. Thank you for all the stories you shared and the enthusiasm. Amazing living there must just be a high every day. Kurt, I believe you had a question.
I must say, Madam Chair, as a long-time observer of this process, we've broken 2 barriers this morning. The previous group had no nudity signs. And you hold up a string of underwear. I'm curious because the homeless issue is something that in any community that has a lot of it, most people would just kind of prefer to walk around it, avert their eyes, and sometimes public policy does everything it can just to make it invisible so we don't have to feel guilty about it. Where's the energy come from in your community to pay this kind of attention that is so volunteer intensive to this over time?
You know, we have a culture of compassion, I would say, in Rancho Cordova, and it's evidenced in several ways. We didn't talk about some of them. One of them is the nationally renowned Major Community Campus Project, which houses 300 families at a former Air Force base. It's a homeless treatment program. Families are there for up to 16 months, nationally recognized as the model that others try to emulate. And it is 300 families that are housed there in our community with no resistance, no negative impact. But you know, even deeper than that, that is probably successful because of the attitude of that culture of compassion in our community. And I think Ryan can probably speak to this as the founder of Project 680.
Yeah, I know when I first met with Charlene, she's the district liaison for homeless services, I had no idea that there were that many kids that were struggling with permanent places to live. And so, I was heartbroken. I cried on the spot and came home and told my wife and kids and got together a few neighbors and said, you know, we've got to do something about this. And so, you know, we decided to collect socks, and then, you know, we moved on to shoes and underwear and such. But I think that our message has been really effective because we're asking people to care for kids that really need these things. We're not asking them for money, for large donations, or to collect enough to buy a house. We're saying, hey, would you respond in this simple way? And it's been really overwhelming.
Christine?
It's a follow-up thank you, and I love the heart and the compassion of it. It is really wonderful. So you know 680, have those numbers changed in the last year? Are they going up? Are they going down as your community becomes? And it's a brilliant way to make the community aware. What has happened in terms of that awareness that may translate into either public policy or new ways of thinking within the school district to support families and children who are experiencing homelessness?
Charlene is probably the best person to answer that. The frame of it is probably, you know, we live in odd economic times. And so the trend over the past 3 years is probably not typical. Charlene can probably speak to the numbers.
Actually, we've gone from about 125 identified to, as of this year, more than 900, closer to 1,000. And because of the accuracy of our data collection and the reports that we've made, Rancho Cordova has played an instrumental role in changing or affecting policy at the county level. We also have ongoing conversations with the National Association for the Education of Homeless Children and Youth with Barbara Duffield, and that is affecting national policy. So Rancho Cordova is playing a huge role in this.
You have a question.
Thank you very much. The magic is great, okay? In your application, you talk about image problems, and you list a list of image problems, and then you give us a list of assets. One of the problems is around housing, the other one's around retail variety. How are you addressing some of those problems that you didn't have a chance to talk to us about in your presentation?
We've had a number of ways that our community has addressed the issues. We obviously are doing economic development and trying to attract retail. We're trying to make sure that we have image in our own community, because we were a community that lost 22,000 rocket scientist jobs, and one of our major employers scaled back. We lost 7,000 or 8,000 employees when our Air Force base closed in 1993. So we suffered a little bit in our own internal image. We've been doing a lot since that time to change our internal image. And at the same time, we're changing our image in the region and in the state.
Charles, over to you.
I don't know how I'm going to settle down after this. But as I recall, and I was here last year, and so were you. And so my question is, how and why did you decide to come back, to try?
Well, we actually, truly, to the marrow of our bone as a community, believe we are the typical all-America city. We have been forced to reinvent ourselves like many, many cities across America have had to do. We've dealt with the entire menu of challenges that America faces today, from welcoming immigrant populations to urban revitalization. We lost an Air Force base, and some people would say when we lost our Air Force base, we lost our heart. But it forced us to turn around and reinvent ourselves. I think one of the wisest moves we made as we went out, we found the expert on reinvention, Ted Gabler, who actually wrote a book on the topic. And then he, as a community, we've been able to gather together and really reach down deep. Because we have a story to tell, and in our own region, we're the underdog. We need this. We need this to come back and say, hey, things are happening in our town, and we want you to know about it. Everybody else does.
Very quick question, brief statement. I like the slogan, we make the magic. Oftentimes engagement is very significant, particularly in community initiatives. The challenge of homelessness, many people are looking for magic, and oftentimes that magic is represented by celebrities, public officials making statements to corral support. What was the thinking behind not using either of those in your campaign?
Well, I'd refer to my comments on culture of compassion, and probably amplified by that saying, Rancho Cordova is sort of known in our region as a very churchy community. We're also a very volunteer-based community. Might tie that back to Air Force roots, where people believed in the future of their community and they donated their time, they're willing to risk their money and invest in a home in our community. In those days, our community has real heart as a result. I think Ryan really tapped into the brilliance of just a grassroots networking strategy to try to do something small and turn it into something giant. I don't know, Ryan, if you have anything you want to add to that?
I never intended to start an organization. But all of a sudden people kept saying, well, what are we doing next? And so, well, we better think of something. And so we're just going strong, and I find that people, it's just really snowball effect. People want to be involved. Businesses, churches, City Hall has been enormous support, employees, neighbors. And so I think for me, as a resident, I don't want to wait around for the government to make a move. I don't want to wait around for a program to come in place. I want to do something. And I think that really epitomizes our heart in Rancho Cordova. And I think that's why it's been successful for Project 680. And that's really the gist of it.
For your City Hall services, it's kind of a one-stop place to go. Tell me how that works now, and do the different groups work well together? Obviously, we do.
Well, it is a big tent, and that was our big tent you saw. It was an image of this City Hall. And I have to credit Ted was sort of the design of it, but he walked into a community where I mentioned, volunteerism is enormous. A lot of people volunteer. And we have a very unusual organization called the Cordova Community Council. You can think of it as a chamber of commerce for the non-profit community. It's an association of service clubs and churches and 4-H groups and Little League, every sort of organization like that you can imagine that work together on something. And before we were a city, that community council, I'm president of that organization as well as being a councilman, sort of functioned like the city council. We also, of course, had a chamber that served business interests, and Ted's vision was to put those two organizations and government in one building, three-legged stool, we call it in Rancho Cordova, and also make enormous spaces available to both parties to rent spaces and do functions in City Hall. Ted, you want to add to that?
The fun part for me as city manager is that if we have projects that come up, emergencies or opportunities, either one, We don't have to scramble around and try to get a citizen committee and think who in the business committee would do that. They already have Cordova Community Council, a 50-year organization that mobilizes volunteers instantly. And so we meet regularly, talk about our issues, and I can kind of wash my hands of city employees doing this thing and have the Cordova Community Council with Shelley and others doing, the Chamber of Commerce doing their part of the committee. Just seamlessly works together by being in the same building.
It's a great idea. It's a perfect idea. We're out of time. I'm sorry, because we would love to share some more magic with you. And Ryan, I'd like the privilege to shake your hand. Ryan with them, I'm going to have to go there. Because this is, you absolutely engaged with that at the very right time. We solve big problems by beginning with small events. It's the old theory, you can't eat, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And so you've changed, obviously changed the community, and I know how many young children in all of our communities are struggling today, and they need Ryans. So I thank you for all of you that have made this such a wonderful community story of bringing people together. I'm so glad you came back.